was listening to the radio. There was a sermon, not really a sermon, but they, lack of a better term, just a radio show talking about religion and how to, live a godly life. And one of the subjects that came up was forgiveness, and it's been floating around in my mind for a while. And I had different perspectives on forgiveness. I used to be a really angry person growing up, kind of the why me attitude, until I got more into my spiritual journey and understand more. And I was talking with my Taekwondo instructor a few days ago, and he said something that kind of resonated with me. He said, the more I learn, the more I understand, things become more real, if that makes sense to you. And it made sense to me. Things become more clear to me. There used to be kind of a vagueness in some subjects, some situations, like, you just kind of store that in the back of your mind. And then the more I learn, the more I seek to learn about spiritualism and religion and even my faith, things start, the clouds the clouds seem to subside, and things are more clear, more real, lack of a better term to me. But breaking into this video with this video, and forgot to mention that the passage the radio person was talking about forgiveness is that when Jesus talked about, there was a rich man who had somebody who owed him money, a great sum of money, and he told this guy, you know what, you've been good, you've been a good person, I'm gonna forgive the debt you owe me. And so the guy was all happy, but then days later, or sometime later, the guy whose debt was forgiven had somebody that owed him money, but then instead of forgiving the smaller debt, because his big debt was forgiven, he sued the guy, or had the guy arrested for indebtedness. And so then when the rich guy found out that this guy didn't forgive the smaller debt, even though he had his big debt forgiven, he made him an outcast. But anyway, passage below here. So as Christians, we have had our debt forgiven, a greater debt than we will ever know, forgiven. So in turn, we should forgive people who owe us things, or who have wronged us, in the same sense of the parable. So anyway, back to your regularly scheduled video there. Back to forgiveness. I used to think that when somebody did you wrong, and if you forgave them, it meant that it was okay for them to do it to you again. Or I felt that it was, if I forgave them, that they won, right? That they got one up on me. And that's part of the human condition. We don't like to be fooled, albeit we get fooled all the time, without even knowing it, obviously. Nobody wants to be fooled, unless you go to like a magic show or something like that, where part of the fun is seeing, oh wow, that's that is mysterious. I've never. Yeah, you get my point. But on a day-to-day basis, we don't want to be ripped off. We always talk about finding a good deal. Kind of getting one up on the man. But human beings as a whole, in my observation, don't like to be fooled. So and don't like to lose and don't like to be wrong. Hold on just a second. So when I used to think when I forgave somebody, then you know, I just have to suck it up and be happy with being messed over or cheated. But that's not the case in the, you know, it's counterintuitive, where Jesus in the Bible teaches you that you should forgive. And when somebody does you wrong, you know, turn the other cheek. If you know, something to the extreme, you know, if they want to borrow $100, you know, give them $1,000, something like that. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. I have to find the passage and put it right here. But it's, you know, and it ties in. It's not the whole story there. The whole story is kind of strewn throughout the Bible, in that you have to me, I had to know more about the Bible to understand certain parts of it, because it's not, you know, it's not little bits and pieces. There's a whole big picture to it, and I'll talk about that later. But the big picture is, yes, you should forgive that person that did you wrong, whatever it may be, whether they got mad at you for no reason, whether they didn't pay you back for something, where they hosed you over for an opportunity. Now, forgiveness, in my opinion, in my observation, where I am now, as far as forgiveness is, forgiveness to me means you don't hold that grudge. It doesn't mean that you roll over and you take it again and again and again, albeit it would suggest that in the Bible, but not really. When Jesus talks about, you know, turn the other cheek, you know, if somebody strikes you, turn the other cheek to let them strike the other cheek, or something like that again. But to me, it just means you move on, and it's kind of actually, when you learn how it frees you, it's kind of a selfish thing, really, a self-preservation, to want to forgive people, because you know, there's that metaphor of just baggage, right? The term baggage means more than just stuff you put your clothes on for a trip. Baggage is hurt feelings, animosity, anger that you carry around because you haven't let it go. You haven't forgiven the person or the people who you felt did you wrong. You know, there's that trust but verify term, and I've heard different people talk about it, whether it be there's a radio personality called, her name is Dr. Lard Schlesinger, and then I think Dr. Phil talks about it a little bit. Not that I watch Dr. Phil, I might, could be, but the theme that they talk about is, you know, you can forgive, but doesn't mean you have to be a doormat. Trust but verify, right? So if somebody borrows money from you and they don't pay you back, the first point is, was there a specific understanding? You know, kind of ties in back with like the People's Court and all those small claims court shows. The problem, the root of the problem is communication. Oh, don't worry about it, you can pay me back, whereas the other person heard, oh, don't worry about it. So first you have to establish the communication. You know, what was it that we both agreed upon, right? Now, then the second part, if you don't agree to what was said and what was agreed upon, then you can, two main choices. You can be angry about it and never talk to that person again, depending on your level of relationship before. Or if it was a good friend, you say, you know what? Okay, it's not that important, whatever the amount of money or whatever the situation is. Let's take, for example, $100. You loan somebody $100. They say, I'll pay you back, and they never do. Then you just chalk it up for experience. You know, it was $100. Yeah, I could have used that money. It hurt, but it's not worth my relationship. If it is, if you feel that that person wasn't that great of a friend, well, then you can forgive it and move on. But the key is you don't harp on it. You don't retaliate. Now, I'm talking about me. I don't retaliate. I don't, plot how I can get back at them, because usually that is just time and energy that I could be using to do something else that's more pleasant. So, in a selfish sense, it's better for me to just walk away. Cut your losses, so to speak. Point of diminishing returns. You know, these business terms, because I'm a business professional. So I try to pair it up with things that I understand in business. Same and it applies to business too. You know, if you do business with a company that doesn't do you right, don't pay their bills and stuff like that, or doesn't keep to their contract, then okay, depending on how much the amount was. I mean, if it's going to sink your business, yeah, then you sue them. But if it's something that you can just chalk up for experiences, like, you know what, here's my money, but that's the last time you're going to get. That just keep it professional. So, and that goes a long way with personal relationships too. If somebody does you wrong, say, okay, you know what, I get it. That's the way you are. We're good. Don't worry about it, but don't expect another dime. I'll be your friend. We'll go hang out, separate bills, and just keep it at that level, because I think where people fester the anger is they don't want to believe that's the way that person is, and they want to change them by I don't know, whatever, by being mean to them or by harping on it. It's just, hey, that's the way that person's going to be. So to protect your sanity, again, my sanity, to protect my sanity, we'll keep it at a professional level. If they don't like it, then it's up to them to change. But I know the way they are, and I don't want to get set myself up for disappointment anymore. But I forgive that person. That if I never see that money again, I'm good with it. That's different. Learning from that mistake is different from not forgiving or holding a grudge. And the other kind of the follow through with that premise is that you have to communicate to that person and say, hey, I loaned you $100. There was a miscommunication between whether it was a loan or a gift, but you know what? Keep it. It's not worth it. But next time, we're going to establish ground rules. If you choose, if you're going to borrow money, we're going to have a contract, right? Let's keep business and friendship. Too often, a lot of good relationships are broken because there was a miscommunication or misconstrued information, and then one side blames the other side, and it's at the Hatfields and McCoys. One side says you did this to us, and the other side said you did that to us, and then both groups as a whole do unscrupulous things, and then it becomes really, really muddy really fast. Who did what and who was worse than the other, and then it's a one-upsmanship. Well, you did that to me, so I'm going to do this to you, and then it's back and forth, and then it just never ends. But on a personal level, for me, kind of wrapping this up, forgiveness means that whatever the transgression was, you chalk that up for experience. You don't put yourself in that situation anymore.
Continue 22 miles.
And you communicate with the person who you felt, if you feel like it, and you communicate with that person. So, well, okay, this is how I feel. And if they're unreceptive to it, that's fine. Walk away. Don't stew over it. Of course, I'm human, and I do have I would say grudges, but I do think about those things from time to time. But you know what? It's like with anything. The more you practice, the easier it gets. People I have forgiven, I still think about it. I still remember when it happened, when that situation comes around again. But I don't get angry about it. I just kind of say, okay, this is what's happened in the past. How can I position myself to not go through that again? And understand, well, that's just the way that person is, and deal with them or don't deal with them. But don't let that anger and animosity well up in you, because it's stealing your joy. So that's what I understand about forgiveness. The more you do, the easier it gets, and it doesn't mean to roll over and take it from the person that you've forgiven. And you can tell that person you forgive them or not. Forgiveness is more for me. The forgiveness is for my peace. It's not for their peace. If they truly are an evil or nasty or unpleasant person, pray for them. Pray for them, because chances are they haven't forgiven whoever it was that they felt did them wrong, and so they're going to take it out on people around them. So that's it. That's my rambling today. Hope everybody has a good weekend, and God bless. Take care.